has it. I don't know. Now, I'll tell you this. We're talking about bad Democrats, and we've been on this call for an hour already. So we'll talk about our own experiences with racism
so you're
another time, I think.
To your issue with privilege.
It's not my issue, Marianne. Listen, this is not my issue. This is not my issue at all. I don't want to take away from the seriousness of this issue. Okay, now I'm going to read you a couple of tweets.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me what the most racist thing you hear is. Okay? Okay. The neighbor's son, this is Delegate Cody Thompson, West Virginia. The neighbor's son is now running against me for my seat in the House of Delegates. He's a radical 20-year-old, never went to public school, lives at home with his daddy, doesn't have a job, has lived in the USA and West Virginia for 6 years, but knows our values, right? I'd love to take Elias Coop Gonzalez out to our farm for a day and have him make hay, work in the garden, or cut wood just to see how much of a West Virginian he really is. I'd love to debate him on actual West Virginia issues as well. Now, what do you think is the most racist part of that?
So anytime you're making comments, you have to think about the stereotype.
Mm-hmm. I think he did. I think he knew what he was doing. Go on.
I don't know. I'm not in Cody's head.
Thank God.
The most racist part of that is the comments about the farm.
Well, I kind of thought it was about not being, if you're not from the USA, then you can't know our values. See, I went a different way.
Okay.
But you know what?
You were talking about the most racist. So the most racist is the farm work.
Yeah.
Because even mentioning that, apparently, Marianne Clater, who has been born and raised and lived up the holla in Cabin Creek, where, the guy at the bottom of the hill had a farm, but I have never personally worked on a farm. I wouldn't even know what you do with that hay. But apparently, I guess I'm not a real West Virginian.
You're not.
I don't have West Virginia values because I don't know anything about that.
So what country are you from then?
Garden in our back, but I didn't. My parents really did that garden. We really didn't. We didn't have to go up there. I guess I'm kind of privileged. I didn't have to. I still have some privilege.
You didn't have to work the garden. Right. So Delegate Cody Thompson got rightfully tore up over this comment. The comments to him, the replies to him were not nice, pointing out his racism. So in response, Cody makes this tweet, and his takeaway wasn't that the stereotype was racist or that saying someone from the USA can't have our values is racist. His takeaway is this. Apparently, this is his tweet. The WVGOP has never heard of autocorrect. True, I should have proofed the tweet, but it changed the spelling of his name and capitalized it one time because I have a contact in my phone whose name is spelled that way. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not a racist. So first of all, I knew AI was racist. I didn't know that it would rewrite your tweets for you, Secondly,
we do know that it's racist because we know that the autocorrect does do some things sometimes.
We're all in danger. I'm not even going to,
But I just don't, I didn't see any problem with the capitalization of the Gonzalez. So I was I was sort of like, why would, I think you could have kind of got away with the not from West Virginia thing, because I'm telling you, when we're born and raised in West Virginia, we do have
It's true. That's fair.
Some biases against people who are not from West Virginia. Mm-hmm. However, the core principles of Democrats are that we are welcoming to the immigrants. So when he went to include USA, I just think that was just very inappropriate.
Let me just go ahead and say the truth behind it. What he did, now you making faces, but what he did was an attempt to play to that racist base. He wanted to win some Republicans. He knows that they gerrymandered his district and he's at a disadvantage. So he wanted to chip away at the people he could win away from in the Republican Party. And he decided the way to do that is to make them scared that an immigrant is going to win a race. And let's be real. He knew what he was doing when he made the farmhand comments about knowing West Virginia values. He didn't have to put in the USA thing and capitalizing the name. It wasn't autocorrect, even if it was. All of these things taken together, it's a much more damning. What he did was a lot worse than what he said he did. And so his response even is to erase all of the harm that he's caused or all of the damage that he's done in his stereotypes. And in that aspect of his tweets, he's erased that completely. And he says, okay, so I capitalized his name. It was an accident. And it's actually because I have a friend whose name is Gonzalez. And that person is in my phone so much that my phone thinks that I was talking about him. And that's why it changed the name. It doesn't even make sense. So since this was in, let's see, when was this? I don't know. This was, I think, like 16 days. How long? It was 10, 12 days. It was a couple weeks ago now. And Cody's just basically been off of Twitter ever since. And my question is, if you have enough sense to quit Twitter after this, why don't you have enough sense to go and delete those tweets?
Well, I'm not a big proponent of delete. I feel like if you put them out there, you put them out there. Now, if you want to issue an apology, that's different. And I was kind of strange that he blamed the West Virginia GOP were they the ones coming after him? Because
I don't think so.
From what I heard, it was Democrats because Democrats don't believe in being anti-immigrant, and
they don't believe in. We're supposed to not be racist. You know what? That story's short. Let's go ahead and jump into this. But they are racist. So the reason that this story is a big deal to me is because Cody Thompson was one of the main people to help discriminate against Black and Indigenous diversity caucus chairs and to keep us from participating in drafting an affirmative action plan. So Marianne and I both came onto the Affirmative Action Committee when it was formed. I was the male co-chair of the Indigenous caucus. She's the female still is the female co-chair of the Black caucus. We came in.
Well, I came on before you.
You came on before me. I was elected late because they didn't have my caucus formed. So if you remember last year in 2021, there was this big implosion. They called it a racist implosion where Belinda Biafor and white Democrats presented a draft AA plan to the AAC. And the AAC was mad that they didn't have input, that people there didn't have input. We didn't have input from the diversity caucuses, all of this. And we wanted to not vote on that plan. We wanted to table that discussion until we could get together with the new caucuses and draft an affirmative action plan. That was the whole story. If you go back and read news stories, that's the line that they give. But what happened? That's not what happened. What happened is when the new diversity caucuses came in, the three racial diversity caucuses, the only racial diversity caucus they had up till then was the Black caucus. And then the Latin caucus came on, the Indigenous caucus, and the Asian American Pacific Islander caucus. So those three came on. So then none of us that wanted to be a part of the planning committee or the bylaws committee, the two committees that are basically doing all the work of the AAC, the actual writing of documents that would be, formative in the future years. And Marianne and I both wanted to be on. They said we couldn't be on both committees. So we were kind of like, okay, one of us should do one of us should do the other, just to keep an eye on everything. So on the first meeting that I was actually able to participate in for the AAC on August 17th, 2021, we passed a motion. The entire committee passed a motion saying that you could join committees by volunteering. And that was our understanding when we left that meeting. We tried to volunteer for committees after that, and our emails were never returned. We were never appointed to those committees. And then the very next meeting, they come in and they've rewritten the rules completely again and basically negated everything we did at that August 27th meeting or August 17th meeting and have put in all these rules, and they didn't ever let us onto those bylaws committees. So that's when we filed the grievance last year, and the West Virginia Democrats Board of Appeals found that we were wrongfully kept from participating on these committees, but they never took any action. There was no action taken to remedy the situation. We weren't given positions on those committees. The draft AA plan that they passed, again, without any Black or Indigenous voices being heard in the process, is still sitting before the executive committee. So, but Cody was the chair of the Bylaws Committee, correct? And I think he's the one. Both committees had that man, Harold Ickes, an out-of-state millionaire who used to work for Bill Clinton, actually known as Bill Clinton's garbage man by the New York Times in 1997, a title which he seems to enjoy because in 2007, he was working for Hillary as a volunteer, and he had an article written about him. And he said he refers to himself as the assistant director of sanitation. I think that's what he called himself. So he enjoys that joke. He enjoys his role in it. And he's been meddling in this party. And people like Cody Thompson, Selena Vickers, Jared Powell, these white people within the AAC were working with him to help silence minority voices. And so that's why I have this problem with Cody Thompson, is because ever since then, trying to get that story out, it's amazing to me. There were so many articles written about the first racist implosion and nothing about the second one. The second one didn't even happen. So when white Democrats are affected by discrimination, when white AAC members were affected, news story. But when the black and indigenous members are affected, there's not anything written about it. And this is it's demoralizing for the minorities. You know, the indigenous caucus, we all walked away and not with a good taste in our mouth. We left on very bad terms because of all of this. I mean, everything that's been happening has been absolutely undeniably racist and wrong. But in this state, nobody cares. The reporters are even, they mock me. They say I'm lying. It's a bullshit story. And, but then they sit there and say, I talked to Marianne Clater. Well, Marianne Clater was on that grievance with me. Are you calling her a liar? Are you saying she's full of BS? Where does the line get drawn? So this is a very personal story for us when racism is involved. So here we have Cody Thompson exhibiting this racism that we accused him of in a very public way, and the party is silent. And I think that this is a moment whenever one of the reasons we have such trouble with Republicans is that they think that we're disingenuous in our attacks. And if you don't stand up to Democrats in your own party who attack somebody in this racist manner, they think that you're just using racism as a cudgel against your political opponents. And I have to say, that's what it looks like. And that's what it feels like. I feel like the Democrats are not there for us. I feel like the Democrats absolutely turned their back on the Indigenous Caucus. We had the 14th Indigenous Caucus in the entire United States. We were making history here. We were doing a lot of work, and all anybody could talk about was my bad attitude or my not falling in line with what the white people told us. The only thing I ever did was fight for inclusion and fight for the voices of my caucus to be heard. And that was a cardinal sin. So I don't regret anything that's happened, but this has been our core. And, we'll go more in depth about our time in the AAC over the course of this show, I'm sure, because it's just so formative in our new opinions of the people who have taken charge, because that was their goal whenever they formed the AAC. A lot of people don't realize this. There was a Rules and Bylaws Committee meeting for Belinda Beafor's credentials that was coming up shortly after that first racist implosion meeting that everyone talks about in June of 2021. Had we not passed that draft AA plan, the party would have been in violation of the memorandum of understanding that the reformers got the AAC started with. And if she had been in violation of that, they could have very well made the claim that she wasn't fit to be chair. And that Rules and Bylaws Committee meeting that had been planned well before that first June meeting, they wanted that ammunition, I believe. If you look at the people, Cody Thompson was the one who came forward with the very reasonable, if you ask me, not really, the very reasonable suggestion that, maybe we don't vote this down. Let's just table it for a little bit. We'll just table it. And they had the vote to table it, if you remember. Well, Cody Thompson is very, very tight with Selena Vickers. I think Selena, I'm not sure what their role is, but you could tell in our correspondence. I have all the email. If anybody wants the emails, please email the show, takeastandpod@gmail.com. I will forward you all the emails. It's fascinating. Just how manipulative this group has been in taking over, and it manifested in outright racism. So that's why Cody Thompson's egregious words about Elias, they hit close to home for me. I may not be that guy, and I definitely don't agree with his politics. He's pro-life. He is young. I hope that he doesn't I don't know. I don't like it, but it doesn't mean that we go and resort to racist attacks, and we can't make excuses for that. We have to stand up against it. And just the way that Cody has shown over and over again his complete lack of respect for anything to do with people's racial issues, identities, whatever you want to call it. He uses it like he has like some sort of right. You know, he told me that he was indigenous and Hispanic. Well, if that's the case, Cody, first of all, I don't believe you. Secondly, if that's the case, why would you speak to Elias in that way? Doesn't that go against your nature? I mean, don't you feel a little bit bad for speaking to someone who you claim to share history with in that way, and that talking down to you're not one of us kind of exclusionary, xenophobic kind of way? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, this is what we should be standing up against. And so I say it's time to clean house. There are bad Democrats in our ranks, and they need to go. They need to not have that place anymore. And right now, one of them sitting at the head of the table.
Well, I have to admit, like, well, Cody, I don't know what happened, because in the beginning, I mean, I was able to call and talk to him, and I mean, we were fine. I don't know where this transition happened. I mean, because what was really upsetting was when he did, you know, the tweet about the AAC.
Oh, that's a great one. We should bring that up. Yeah, I'll put it up on the screen because I'll find it for this part, but I'll paraphrase it right now. I'll put it up on the screen for people. They're reading the real thing. But the gist of it was, I can't believe the level of homophobia in the some minorities in West Virginia are expressing.
It said
and transphobia that some minorities are expressing. But most of the AAC rocks.
Okay, it said that. So you should have had the actual one, because what it was saying that happened in in a meeting we had just had.
Yeah, it was. It was the day after a meeting that the AAC had. The meeting that I walked out on, that my sister and I walked out on as chairs of the Indigenous Caucus, because we said it wasn't legitimate. And it turns out the Board of Appeals found that it wasn't legitimate. Larry Taylor, this guy from, I believe, Washington State, came and chaired the meeting, and he had no right to chair the meeting. And I wasn't going to sit there and be a part of their games. I'm not going to waste my time in that way. They already nullified an entire meeting that we had spent 2.5 hours discussing things. I wasn't going to waste my time. And, but it was at that meeting. So I wasn't even there. My sister and I weren't there. The next day, Cody makes this tweet, the one that you just saw, the one talking about homophobia and transphobia. And that same day, an email goes out to the executive committee by this guy. I don't think he needs mentioned because he doesn't deserve to be mentioned. Calling us the Three Musketeers, saying that we're a three-headed dragon. And then he included Cody's tweet and implied that we are the ones that are homophobic and transphobic, and used that tweet as a way to smear us to the entire committee. And honestly, it did a lot of damage. Well,
and you have to realize, if you back up, you know, I had even in one of that this person is in the group with, I had said to Cody, because I knew what was going to happen. I knew that some kind of way there was going to be a lie told that I had made some type of homophobic, transphobic comment. And so I asked Cody right out, and Cody said, "No, it's not you. I would hope that no one would think that it was you, because we've had, which Cody and I did have good conversations, you know, before." And right. So, but this person doesn't care about the truth. So they decided, I'm going to go.
They're one of the person we're talking about is one of the biggest liars I've ever met. Let's just be honest. Okay, go on.
And I know that this, I mean, I just won't go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, so it was, you know, that's what kind of got me, is that you're going to go out and tell flat out. I'm like, hey, I got enough stuff you could pull out about me. I mean, you don't have to go make up lies. There's enough truths. I mean, because I'm pretty vocal about things, so you can come up with truths. So when Cody did that tweet, it was sort of, you weren't there. Marlene was there. She happens to be Black, but she's there representing, which I tried to explain to them before, that Black people don't want us used as a checkoff box so you can make one person fit into so many.
Oh, she's Black and a woman, and I heard she's got a little bit of Indian in there too. She's indigenous today.
She was the co-chair of the women, and that's who she was there representing.
Right. And she was there to speak for the women's caucus. So that's who she was representing, not the Black caucus.
Right. So
not that she would do anything against the Black caucus, but she has to go with the needs of the caucus she's representing over another caucus that she may be a group of, because she's there to represent the women. So that's all you're trying to say. Right. But that's not how they treated her either. They wanted her to check boxes.
So the Latin caucus chair, who she's
a member of the global majority, yes.
Yes, and she's, has the darker melatonin.
Melatonin is what you take to go to sleep.
Melatonin.
She's got all the melatonin, though, I tell you. Yeah, she sleeps like a baby.
I apparently am on some melatonin right now the way I'm sleeping from working these two jobs. But anyway. So then the only other people of color were the what is their caucus? The AAPI caucus?
Yeah, Asian American Pacific Islander. Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the only of the minorities.
Right.
But in your mind, I understand they are minorities. But in your mind, when someone makes comments about minorities, what comes to your mind when you say
Black people?
I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. When you talk about minorities,
and who has historically always been called out as having a hard time with gay people, the black community. In California, back whenever they didn't pass gay marriage that one time, like in 2008. Everyone said, "Oh, it's the black community coming out for Obama. They don't like gay marriage, so they voted against gay marriage." But so he's playing again. And now that we know Cody likes to play on stereotypes to make people think the worst of others.
I just wish that he would have came out during that time. I mean, all he did say was that it wasn't me. He said what the statement was. I went back and asked for the video. We happened to be able to get that video, even though we
can't get the one where Harold Ickes said he works against us. But yeah, that one's fine. We can get that one.
But I went back and reviewed it, and what had happened was that one of the not me, not you, okay. So
well, because people also need to understand, I'm a major trans rights activist. You are I got ordained to do marriages right before the pandemic, so I've not actually filed the paperwork, but just for the express purpose of doing gay weddings and LGBTQ weddings of any kind. I mean, this is so far removed from who we actually are. So that's why it was why is this what Cody's trying to imply? Because I've never done anything that would make, and it's been like that ever since. I mean, that's one of the things they keep saying is that I attack Cody in homophobic ways, but that's my problem with Cody is not even, I don't care. Not that I don't care. I'm glad he's gay. It has nothing to do with anything. That's not a problem. That's probably literally his best attribute. I'm telling you, everything else is just trash. But in my opinion, that is my opinion. It's not a fact. But anyway, I forget what I was saying up until that point. You distracted me with my getting to call Cody trash and such. But
I know, it's just that,
but it's the trash that they spew was absolute racism, and we had to be subjected to it. So if anybody thinks that I'm coming at him in this personal way, it's because the personal attacks have done damage. The lies that they've told have done damage. One of the members said that I was a violent stalker type, and that rumor has just spread like wildfire. Some guy I've never even met in Morgantown telling people on Twitter and such that I'm a violent stalker, and these lies have a cost, and these lies that they told on me destroyed our caucus, eroded trust in the party. It had real life impact, but because I guess the indigenous caucus is so small, and the fact that nobody will care, they get away with it. But at the end of the day, it goes to show you that they're using this in a bad faith attempt to win power. All of this racism talk, all of this good talk that they do, why aren't they backing up their words? You walk the walk if you talk the talk, and that's just not what they're doing.
Well, the Indigenous Caucus was the first caucus that had a website, the only caucus that had a podcast.
We did a podcast. We had white papers ready to go. We were going to send out to the candidates. I mean, we did a lot of work.
You were the only caucus. Let me
for a while we had a pretty large caucus there for a while.
Can you?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't ever talk over women of color, Miriam.
You do
Please
all
continue.
the time.
We discussed this at the beginning. I don't.
Okay, so you were the first to have a website, and now we have a website. The Black Caucus has a website.
Black and Indigenous.
The only ones that had a podcast. Now, because you interrupted me, I can't think of what the other one was.
We did everything. We're just the best.
You were the only caucus that I know of that actually passed their own bylaws. And when you look, everybody says, "Oh, the small numbers," but when you look at the proportion, because you only need, what was it, like one Indigenous person on the executive committee to meet the percentage requirements.
Yep.
As far as the representation on the executive committee. So when you look at the size of your caucus in relationship to that percentage, you are as small as people would like to portray.
No, I mean, even after, so we got to the point where we had to kind of batten down the hatches for a while, because there were people, like, first of all, people accusing us of not being Indigenous. And we had infiltrators trying to come in, joining the club that we didn't think were Indigenous. So we passed a rule that you had to be a member of a tribe or self-submit a DNA test proving a certain amount of Indigenous from the North America and South America. That kind of cut down on some of the people that were coming, but most of the people who were coming were allies or members of a tribe. I mean, honestly, we had let's see. We had five people sign off on the letter supporting our decision to dissolve, and then 3 other people. So we had 8 real federally recognized Native Americans, Indians, whatever you want to call us. Well, you don't get to call us Indians. I do. And it was just completely erased. We didn't exist. Nothing that we did, everything that we did, we wrote. Okay, so we passed a resolution before Shane Assad-Zandi was sworn in as a at-large executive committee member earlier this year. Before he was done that, we put out a resolution asking for them to not approve him because of his racist antics. He's one of the ones who, in concert with 3 members of the AAC, attacked me in a vicious way that led to outright racist attacks on several members of my caucus who showed up on his post after they heard about it. And it was brutal. I mean, even people who started out saying, "Oh, yeah, Seth's a bully, Seth's a bully." They said, "Oh, wait a second. This is turning racist. Wait." So, so this guy.
You weren't going to mention his name, because this is the same person that sent the letter.
Oh.
You said, "I'm not mentioning his name."
Well, now everybody knows who wrote the letter and who I said is the biggest liar I've ever met. My opinion, again, my opinion.
Holds 3 seats, not by vote of the voters of West Virginia, but he has manipulated his way into having 3 voting seats, although you can only vote
one time. See, what he's done is limit participation even further. And it's been the pattern that's been going on. So basically, roundabout way of saying.
And he's supposed to be the super progressive of West Virginia and doing all these things. And I'm sort of like, I didn't know this is what progressivism was about. I don't want to be called a progressive anymore.
I didn't know. Listen, when we came into politics, we were both pretty green. I mean, we weren't involved in this back room kind of level.
No, we weren't involved in the back room, but you were more political than I was. I wasn't political.
Right, but I wasn't involved in the party apparatus. And it was like, we came in. So, like, I was a big Bernie supporter, and like everyone hated me for it. Right. And I'm like,
that's what you would be considered.
My point is I didn't get it. I didn't get the hatred. And now I've met people that use that use the progressive moniker. They say they like Bernie Sanders and what he stands for, but they go out there and they do these evil, awful things. And I get it now. That's what people were associating with Bernie. And I think that's why he lost. I think that I hated to say it before, but it was his supporters who really cost him. It was people like Shane. It was people like Selena. These people who they have a goal and they have an agenda, and that was a means to an end. And that's not what we needed. And for some reason, those people get amplified. I don't know. I think it's just the cutthroat nature of their personality that they get away with it too. People just assume they're telling the truth. Hey, Shane must be telling the truth about Seth. He must be working for Belinda Bia for getting personal projects. Yeah, the only personal project I ever got was I talked to Belinda and got the party to agree to pay for professional training, for development training for everybody on the AAC. It was an entire AAC thing. And they shot it down because they couldn't manipulate it. It was an outside independent person.
So she brought somebody else in and had Selena.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, she had that. I wasn't able to go to it because it was pulled together so fast that we didn't really have enough notice. Some kind of parliamentarian
training
thing. So she always wanted her people, somebody she knew to do the things. And like I said, it was pulled together so fast after you made that suggestion, like you were going to bring in somebody. You you weren't friends with that person. I mean, I don't understand. And the party was required to do certain things for the affirmative action committee. And that's why Belinda.
Right. It wasn't like it wasn't like I know Belinda Bia and I said, hey, Belinda, friend. I mean, no, it wasn't like that.
It's like, friend. Did you call her and say, friend?
Bestie.
I need a favor.
I need you to help train all these other people that hate me. I want them to get the best,
I know, friend.
And actually, all it was basically how to operate and function properly as a group. But that's the thing that they never wanted.
Of course, when I accepted this position, because somebody else, Sammy Brown was supposed to be the outreach director. She was a former delegate. But she went into I don't know what happened, but she went into the service, and I know they kept waiting on her to. So I'm thinking that.
I think she got deployed.
Huh? I
think she may have been deployed somewhere.
I don't know what it is, but I know that I keep seeing awards she's getting. She's doing, whatever it is. I don't quite, because I thought she was in the Guard, but so I'm not for sure. But she's doing some remarkable things in her military career. So I don't know what happened. Maybe she decided that she was going to be more active in that. I really don't know the backstory of that. And I haven't, I never did ask. I just know that I had gotten a call about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, because I was out putting together Build Back Better rallies.
Oh,
trying to get
how'd that work out for us?
I know. I mean, because I felt like we were hearing about that from the activists, and I was organizing this through county executive committees because it was, in my opinion, that they need to hear from West Virginia Democrats, not just activists. And so that was the reason that I had started doing that. And then so I got the attention of the party from those things. And that's what that was the reason she said she called me to ask if I would be willing. And I was like, I was paying my travel cost out of my own pocket. So I was like, yeah, sure. Because I just said, I can't do it full time, but anything Marianne Claytor does, even though I said I was part-time, I did the work level before.
I'm going to send you a gift pack of horns.
I get a what?
I'm going to send you some horns because you love tooting your own. But go on. I'm afraid that it'll wear out and you'll run out of juice in it. But go on.
Now, okay, so you going to say?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Marianne Claytor did so much. Let me tell you, she was out there doing the work. Okay, now go on. So you were doing the work.
I mean, seriously though.
I know. I'm not joking. If you don't praise yourself, who's going to? Not these people out here.
I mean, I don't want people, Mike's probably other people have said that he said because people weren't working. And I was sitting there, I'm like.
You turn into the party every month a report of the stuff that you did, right? So he sees the report. So if he's saying that, he's just lying.
And Belinda ended up increasing the pay because she was like, you're doing more work than part-time.
And you know what? Let me just put this out there. Mike Pushkin, if you're watching, if anybody tells you about this, you have an open invitation to come on this show and talk to us. I would love that more than words can express. So yeah, get a hold of us. You have our contact information.
You want to address the allegations against you that you're anti-gay because of that headdress you put on, Cody?
Yeah. Okay. So way to take my thing, which is pretendians. All right. Which is Cody saying he's indigenous when he's not. And I Googled white man Indian costume, and the two pictures showed up. And one of them was the guy was making a funnier face. I picked that one. He's in a cartoonish headdress. It's multicolored. I'm not going to call it a rainbow because it's not a rainbow and it's not meant to be a rainbow. So I put him in that headdress and say pretendian. Just for my own personal gratification, just from funds. And everyone says, oh, homophobic attack on Cody Thompson. He's homophobic. It wasn't homophobic. You're taking away from my story, which is that Cody Thompson is a pretendian and that he wrongfully claimed indigenous heritage when he doesn't have any as a way to erase my indigenous